So, um, the reason why I decided to whip this particular masterclass up is because in October I had this deep dive and introspection into what it means to be an Asian Australian. And quite frankly, before I went to this particular journaling challenge that went for 30 days, I didn't feel such a strong sense of connection to that particular identity, even though I knew that I was a Chinese in Australia. But along the way, I was already questioning how come that I don't often see myself represented very specifically in some sense. And I think I was a bit curious to find out more about why I had the question. And so I have, after that particular journaling challenge and also conversations with the others, I felt more seen, heard, and feel this renewed excitement about sharing the importance of knowing who we are and how that connects to the way we communicate, which is now a part of my passion, is the reason why I have gone into speech and communication studies myself, because I think along the way I have always been led by playing with my voice. And as a kid, I was always just singing to random songs. I copied and parroted everything. I'm sure that some of you in the room also have that kind of relatable experience. And then what happened was I then moved and migrated from China to Australia. And so as I was exploring who I was at the age of up to from zero. Oh, hi Siri, she's talking to me. Let's go. As I was in my formative years, having moved from China to Australia, had to relearn a lot of those interpersonal skills again and language more specifically. And there was a part of me that actually, perhaps, well, it has rejected a part of who I was, being Chinese in a Western country. And I have modeled also towards my dad, who had assimilated really well because he had acquired the language skills quickly and he was making friends with locals. So I saw that as something that I aspired towards. And when I was praised for my language skills, I was like, oh, cool. Little did I realize that I was also rejecting a part of me, my race, and my skills in my language and my connection to my roots and during that time. So leading me towards the time where I really explored and played with my voice, I found a little, I guess, like an exciting part of it, which is how my mother tongue helped me bypass that impeding or that in something that was inhibiting who I really was. And so I like to share that with you. So I will just pop the slideshow up. By the way, if there's any questions or that anything that I have gone through too quickly, please feel free to pop into the message chat box and I can attend to that. I do have a script in front of me just so I can keep in time as well and don't go rambling on too, so forgive me if I'm looking at my screen. So we will look at how your intuition, organic response, and body wisdom can lead to more authentic voice use and expression. And also how breath works in speaking from the energy center, or also known as the core, or in Chinese traditional medicine, the dantian, or if you are into chakra practice, then that could also be the root chakra. So that place and how that can anchor the voice and captivate the others to listen. How cultural sounds, singing, calls stimulate that greater tone and invites people to listen. And finally, the recognition of your cultural identity and its strength and how that strengthens your ability to communicate verbally and non-verbally, so recognition of. The authentic voice is defined as, well, the word authenticity is defined as that it's true to yourself, that it is one's own thought and feeling and acting in accordance with them. So it's basically another word for knowing yourself. And that's the thing. So if you think about infants, babies, if they cry, they can cry on for a really long time, but they don't damage their voices. They can continue on, and it's very loud and it's penetrating, so that it's an innate ability or mechanism built so that they can call out to someone that can help them. But if you think of people, the football fans or the clubbers, nightclubbers, if they go out and they scream and shout for about 2 to 3 hours straight, they'll probably lose their voices. So it's safe to say that we were born, newborns, were born with this uninhibited voice. But as we grow up, the layers of different things starts to pile on, such as, first of all, the immediate environment, our family, the sounds around us. We don't really judge whether they're good or not, but that's just what we take on. The sounds from the families, the members, and then the culture itself, the immediate, the food, and all the sounds, all the goodness. And then we continue to layer that. We start to make friends at school. Whether you are liked or not, these are layers that's piled on. You start to put emotional, physical, maybe even psychological emotions and burdens on yourself to be and fit in. So that continues. And when we go into professional world, again, we have to kind of tweak things and try on different masks to see what works and what doesn't. All these inhibits the voice, or the authentic voice. So we're not that infant anymore. Feels like we've grown up. Intuition, organic response, and body wisdom. So the first point. Let's use fight or flight response as an example. How can that actually help us with authentic voice use? Fight and flight is a response. I have 2 cats, so I see them fight all the time. And and Cleo is the one that is more petite. And whenever she sees Duncan around the corner, you can see her pupil dilate. And then her ears start to really straighten up, and it really listens out to any forms of danger. So she knows that she's in this alert mode, and you can tell her hair sort of stands up as well. Well, then if we use Cleo, and when we are in situations where it feels threatening, and that is really demanding of our energy and attention, our body releases this hormone adrenaline, which makes the bodily change. You feel that your mouth dries up, that your eyes probably start to have better sight in some sense, you're more energized, but then you also feel the shake in your muscles, and that your breath may also become heavier. All these things happen and you can experience it, and these are all there to help you, give you a chance to survive a threatening experience, run away, fight or flight, so you can engage in that situation. So a modern understanding of this particular phrase or stage is also known as freeze, flight, fight, fright, flag, and faint. So that's added so many more different F words to fight or flight. So yeah, well, I think we have been socially conditioned in some sense. The civil behavior and what is societally acceptable is to kind of just stay chill and little and small. And so when that happens, you lock up, and all that breath that needs to go somewhere to fuel into your muscles, the oxygen gets locked up. And so fainting happens, freezing happens. And so the ability to actually act on the situation, the threatening situation, disappears. But luckily, this particular response is still very much intuitive, it's still organic, And that means it hasn't left us. And that is when, if we know how the body responds, then you can actually hone into it, that inherited response, and be able to actually utilize the fact that you do have more heavier breaths. You will have this shaking feeling in your muscles. How do you channel that into that particular demanding situation? And here I'm talking about perhaps communicating your ideas in a situation where you may feel that your ideas are going to be a little bit different to the others. And public speaking is one of the things that people fear the most. Yeah, around compared to death. It can be actually be compared to death. So crazy stuff, right? And if you think about the breathing patterns that you have when you're sleeping, when you're in a sound sleep, that breath is organic, intuitive, and natural. And so we do all know how to do that. It's just knowing how your body responds in times of feeling the threat will be able to help you strengthen that vocal use and expression, because you know, that's going to happen. How do I go into my anchored breath? And that's where we go into how breath works in speaking from the energy center, or the core anchors the voice. If you think about you don't have to think about it. If you place your hand, the 4 fingers length, just below your navel, that area is roughly where the core center is. But scientifically, I'm going to actually say that is also where your rectus abdominal muscle is in the front. And so they're known usually as the 6-packs. And so I have them, except all the lines are horizontal. So thank you, COVID. And so it's surrounded by a band of abdominal muscles, and then there's also the oblique on the side, and then more muscles in the back. And that particular area, you can really expand into this particular area to feel that bearing down motion. And when this happens, think of the tube being a vacuum. If you draw down that pelvic floor, and then your diaphragm also gets pulled down and the lungs expand. So ultimately you're allowing more space in your body, and so that gives you more of this feel behind your voice. But it's not about pushing it out. It's about slowly releasing this controlled air so that the sound is more anchored and that it has got the focus of where it releases. So it goes passing through your larynx outwards. That's very scientific, of course. But if we talk about the dantian or qi, often used in qigong, it's all about regulating the breath and regulating the movements to support that. I'm not an expert in qigong, but being raised up in China, it feels like the Taoist and the Buddhist concepts has always surrounded us, and you see grandpa, grandma always doing their Tai Chi and Qigong in the mornings. So you can tell that there's a reason why they do it. It feels good, and it's like a great exercise, and it's a great regulation for bad temper and any suppression in the world. So then there's also something I'm also familiar with, which is the chakra. So chakra is a Sanskrit word for the energy wheels or the discs, and the philosophy is about having different energy centers all along the body, and the base wheel, the base chakra, is sort of where that energy center is. So being able to engage in that area will make you feel more anchored down. You're like a ship in the wind. I love this analogy, ship in the wind. And when you you drop down the anchor and you lift the fans, wait, hang on, what are they? The sails. Thank you. This anchor, sail, and then you're really, really stable. Yeah, so it's that feeling of your torso expanding and allowing space, taking up space as well. Cultural sound seeing calls stimulating grounded and rich tone. So we were talking about feeling grounded, having anchored voice. Why does cultural sounds, seeing and calls have to do with any of that? the engagement of our own mother tongue. I've actually had conversations with a lot of bicultural, multilingual people out there, and it's something that I'm always curious. And so, as you're sitting here, I've probably questioned you on those things. It's like, what is your mother tongue, and do you speak anything other than English? How does it feel? What's the connection? What is your relationship with your voice? And truth be told, I've actually, when I've spoken to a lot of on my journey of research, when I asked a lot of the students in Singapore, there is something very interesting about their relationship with that mother tongue they have. They tell me it's English. I said, really? Is it? Is it? You know, I'm trying not to be like, oh, but surely it's got something else. And then they start, and I asked them, so what does your parents speak? How do they speak to you? And they go, oh, Malay, like we converse in Malay. Or we converse in Mandarin or Cantonese or dialects. So I thought, okay, well, does that mean that you grew up speaking to them in that language? Or, oh, I replied to them back in English, but I can understand what they're saying. Yeah, so that's really interesting. And there was another actor that I worked with. She is a Korean Chinese. And when the director, because she was speaking Korean in that particular show for a bilingual effect, and when she acted in her mother tongue, so we say mother tongue, the director's like, oh, you sounded way more compelling in Korean compared to your English expression. And then she had this look on her that I recognized. I was like, yeah, I know, that's confusing because I've been educated in an English-speaking country. I've always spoken English. Why do I sound more compelling speaking in my mother tongue? And that is a connection to our roots, isn't it? We grew up listening to the names of the food that's unique to us, the songs that the nursery rhymes, and the fact is, as an infant, while you were being conceived, these are the sounds that you're hearing from the womb, from your mum, making those sounds. Perhaps she would be singing or not, or speaking. You're hearing these cultural sounds from before you were even born. And that's why there is a deeper connection and authenticity to it. You can look it up, but there's definitely some sort of connection deeper than you even intellectually know. And then there's singing and calls. Calls, you can hear it back in the day when they communicate between, like, from mountain to the other mountain. The way to communicate is to go, whoa, right? You're sort of using sound to communicate. And then the market stalls. Think of the market stalls when the markets on the last hour of sales really need to get rid of all that banana and apple. What sort of sounds do you hear? These are all very familiar sounds. And they sound so open and inviting that it gives you a visceral connection to those sounds. And it's not harmful, not threatening, and you want to be there. And singing and chanting are just all beautiful sounds that get people through the day or through combat, and that's also through storytelling. Actually, storytelling using singing methods is another way. And that is why these sounds over the time, I mean, when was the last time that you had a good sing? Had a good howl out there? We're being locked inside. It's been difficult to do that, especially if you're trapped in thin walls. But that's the thing, right? It can feel really cathartic if you get to actually utilize some calls and just use up space and take up space with your voice. There's something vibratory about that. And this is why I bring it to the mother tongue and the cultural sound and the recognition of cultural identity when working on communication. Communication consists nonverbal and verbal communication. So it's the way that we're using our eye contact, it's the way that we are using our hand gestures, but also the words that we're using. In this particular sense, It's the voice itself is so much more than just the vowels and the consonants and the tone and the volume. It's about communicating what's important to you. And a lot of the times there's in growing up without seeing a lot of people like myself in the room, in the classroom, or as my role model, it I never knew what difference it would have made. But after having connected with so many more bicultural and bilingual and people who's experienced that, so you don't have to be bilingual or bicultural to be that. It's that you've got that understanding of different cultures and you've been through code switch experience that there is something really powerful about being able to be seen and heard as a whole. So none of that's been denied, everything's been seen. And that's why the intercultural experience and the practice is something that I do use quite often now, is it's working with, it's a practice that I have researched in and looked into, developed by Kristen Landon-Smith, which is a voice coach from the UK. And she's a bicultural voice coach herself. And partly she was also seeing that pattern of conservatoires, or rather the bigger society, appropriating culturally on how people should sound. And so this is something that I feel really passionate about. It's not just for my training was actor training, but the thing is, it's so much more beyond that. I think this is why I'm doing this today, is that I want to share the fact that we all have the right to speak and we all have the right to be recognized for who we are. And it starts from first recognizing who we are and knowing our identities, whether this is how you identify yourself. And there's also all the different cultures. Even a community has its own culture, work has its own culture. So the way that we can strengthen the way that we're communicating starts from knowing who we are and being able to be recognized culturally and completely understand, to be seen and understood is a really important and empowering thing. And that's why this practice that I'm passionate about is something that I would love everyone to continue to so the practice, I probably should touch on that. The intercultural practice is about recognizing, it's instead of working with everyone assuming that they're the same and have the same experience, is working with speakers and their own cultural context. And the cultural context is pretty much the difference. And playing with difference. So every single speaker have their own unique backgrounds. Their experiences count, their mother tongue counts, their understanding and their code switch experience, and all that variety makes a difference to how they will express themselves. If we don't recognize these things and understand these things, you'll find that often before you can even express your own ideas, you have to first defend who you are. You're being asked, it's like, before you can even express yourself, before even I can express myself, I have to first answer where I'm from. And is that really important? So knowing who we are and really feel anchored down and knowing that your body is wise, that your culture informs you in a lot of ways. So instead of denying it, if we can all be recognized for our own cultural context, and wouldn't you think that life would be easier when everyone's really open and there's less prejudice and judgment in that case? And that is why I feel like this is a really important message that I want to share, along with all these really important techniques and mindsets and concepts to work with in communicating your own ideas authentically through who you truly are, and working with what you already know, and then you can overcome habits or perhaps anything things that's inhibiting your expression. So finally, I like to wrap up and utilize a quote, one of my favorite quotes by Arthur Lesac, who is a voice and actor training, would I say guru or master, who I really strongly believe in the philosophy, because it's about sensing through the mechanism that's there. It's feeling through rather than overly relying on science. I mean, science is important as well, but a lot of the time, if it feels good, then it must sound good. So here is a voice that is free, that feels its inherent right to speak, will have no fear of calling out, whenever and wherever it's needed. But most importantly, a voice can be a beacon in the darkness, something that lights the way for others. And therefore, for my meaning of voice, I choose visionary, someone who lights the way for others. With these concepts all funneled together, that's why I have put together a 4 weeks program. For anyone who's interested to learn more, please email me. I've also got it on my website. So to strengthen your self-expression, self-advocacy, and working on authentic non-verbal and verbal skills with a group of people who are also who recognize that it's important about the cultural identity and working with cultural context. This is available in November, and for everyone who is here, you will also get a good discount with it too. I would love to see you from next week. And if you have any thoughts or would like to share what you have taken away from the session, please feel free to either pop it in the chat box or unmute yourself and we can chat. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, thanks, Nikki. It sounds great.
You're welcome, Janine.
So what day would it be in November and hours and things?
Hours and things. So for details, it's the next 4 Wednesdays. So we're looking at November 7th. Oh, wait, hang on. No, I can't do maths, clearly. November 10th, 17th, 24th, and the 1st or maybe the 2nd of December. And the timing is 7:30 to 9 o'clock. So it's a 90-minute session, 4 sessions. And basically, we're working with the philosophy that I've mentioned here to work on something that you want to either tailor, or we can work with scripts as well. So really, I like to make it as personalized as possible, because I recognize that everyone has their own different messages they want to bring out to the world. It could even be your first talk to camera on Instagram, because I find that so hard. I'm like, da 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 da. It's terrible. I just can't go on. And so I think that that's something that we can all benefit from each other as well. Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much. We have gone a little bit over time. I'm so glad that you're here today. Thanks, Natalie. Awesome. And for those who wants to stay back and chat, feel free to stay back. Otherwise, I wish you a really lovely Wednesday evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Nikki. Bye.